Restituto.
Comes up the pocket. Fires to the right side. Caught by Diggs. Stay up. Oh my God! Oh my God! Touchdown! Are you kidding me? It's a Minneapolis Miracle! I got 3 words for you. You like that?
Welcome to the Rest Stop. It's Tuesday, April 13th, 2021. I'm Brad Restituto, Spencer Ostrovsky with me as well. We come to you every Tuesday and Thursday, 9 to 10 o'clock Pacific time. Good show tonight for you. Some NBA news and action on the hardwood this Tuesday evening. Of course, a devastating injury that's going to send one team, their odds in Vegas down significantly. We'll talk about the impact of that injury in the playoffs as we're less than 17 games left in the NBA regular season. And we'll talk about the playoff structure that's going to have 7 through 10 shoot it out for 2 spots in the NBA playoffs. Spencer the Wiz and myself will get into that. We have some NFL news as we have the draft coming up here in the next 3 weeks. And then one of the greats will be calling it a career due to injury, it looks like. And we'll talk about Julian Edelman and his career with the Patriots, a championship player, an overachiever, and in my opinion, a potential Hall of Famer. So we'll talk about that. The Masters over the weekend, WrestleMania over the weekend, some Major League Baseball action as we're ramping up on second and third week in MLB. But Spence, we'll start it right off in the NBA. And before we talk about, of course, the Jamal Murray injury for the Nuggets, there's quite a few games, a handful of Tuesday night games, I should say. Not quite a few, a handful of Tuesday night games on the NBA slate. One, a final from earlier as the Minnesota Timberwolves had to postponed their game yesterday due to the shooting in the Minnesota area. They played today. The Brooklyn Nets destroyed the Timberwolves 127-97. Kevin Durant had 31 points for the Nets earlier today, and the Nets get their 37th win of the regular season. NBA TNT doubleheader had the Clippers in Indianapolis to take on the Pacers. The Clippers were without Kawhi Leonard. Paul George makes his return to Indiana, and he has a great night as he has 36 points, 7 rebounds, 8 assists as the Clippers get the win 126-115 over the Pacers. The Clippers move to 38-18 on the season. The Hawks get a road victory 108-103. Clint Capella had 21 rebounds, Spence, 19 points as the Hawks get the win, and now they're 5 games, quietly, Spence, 5 games over 500, the Hawks on the season. Lakers go 4-3 in a road trip or 4-5. Either way, something like that. They showed pretty well. Still without Anthony Davis, without LeBron James. Lakers in comeback fashion get the win over the Hornets tonight, 101-93. Dennis Schroeder had 19 points in the win. Kyle Kuzma had 20-plus points for the Lakers. Lakers 34-21 on the season. Expecting Anthony Davis and LeBron back in the next few weeks. They'll be ramped up, ready to go come playoff time. Andre Drummond trying to get comfortable in the Lakers uniform. He's going to be a very nice presence for that team in the middle. He only had 4 points tonight, but he had 12 rebounds. He played 24 minutes for the Lakers, and he's going to continue to get acclimated in that Lakers lineup. And the Lakers are going to be ready to go come playoff time. So it's going to be a great playoff series for 1 through 8. And then you'll see 7 through 10 as well, trying to fight for those last 2 spots. The Jazz, they get the win tonight. They get their 41st win on the season, 41st win on the season, 106-96 over the Thunder. The Thunder, they lose the game, but they cover the big 16-point spread. 2 games still in progress. One of them the second part of the TNT doubleheader. The Trailblazers, they go scoreless here in the last couple of minutes, it looked like, as the Celtics take the lead at the end of 3. Celtics in Portland, Celtics leading 92-87. And then 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. The Suns, they're pulling away from the Heat 95-78. And that'll be good for Spencer the Wiz's ticket. Spencer, we got any highlights for tonight's NBA action as some pretty nice wins for some teams trying to secure those spots as we're talking about kind of the playoff structure coming down the home stretch of the NBA season?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll start with the Lakers, who are trying to, stay out of that little play-in tournament, which they would not prefer. And I think every team trying to make a playoff spot would also prefer, because otherwise it's probably not going to happen. But Kyle Kuzma stepping up big time, got a very good, valuable contract. Some people would say he got overpaid, but he's actually getting paid less than Markelle Fultz, who is out for the season with that torn ACL. But besides that, I think Kyle Kuzma was just a better player. Had a nice game today.
When I say dragging it, not really running freely, but he seems to be playing through it.
Well, here he is. Throw it down, Kuz.
Doesn't look too bad on that, did it? Kuz first the triple, and then he comes down and gets a return pass from KCP and flushes. Goes right over the top of the defenders and throws it down. That's really nice looking play.
Spence, is Kyle Kuzma an underappreciated player in the NBA? Because I think this guy is super talented, and I think he could be the number 3 on any team in the NBA, and a solid 3. I know hasn't been as consistent at times, but man, every time I see him, he's filling up the bucket, and he can play. He can play on both ends of the floor.
He can play. He's just in a really weird spot. He was kind of that player that got left behind from that original group, that hyped group. He wasn't drafted very high either, so his expectations he always kind of exceeded them in the beginning. And as time went on, people kind of expected more from him. And I think now this is probably the best time he's had in his career, period. I mean, he won a championship, but he enjoys being the leader of this team, and you can tell. And as soon as LeBron James and Anthony Davis comes back, he'll probably go right back to the bench to fill that role. He's being patient. You got to appreciate out of a young guy. He's stuck with the team. He clearly enjoys the culture, and maybe one day he'll get his chance. It's just hard to place him somewhere because he's never had to be the guy. Even when, Brandon Ingram and Lonzo Ball were there, he was always fourth or second fiddle. And you can say Josh Hart to a certain extent. His career is fascinating. Other action in the NBA tonight. I actually kind of forgot this, but Blake Griffin obviously played with DeAndre Jordan. Now they're playing again on the same team. Be curious to see if they play off the bench a lot of minutes together. You would think that'd make the most sense, and some of that kind of synergy is still there.
To reach 10 points this afternoon. Griffin down the floor, beautifully thrown to his former and now current teammate.
The Timberwolves are so garbage. They actually have D'Angelo Russell back, but clearly not making that big of a difference. I don't think they were ever going to win. I don't think the Timberwolves are ever going to beat the Brooklyn Nets, but it just doesn't seem to improving. But we'll see. I mean, I think this is probably like the 7th game that D'Angelo Russell and Karl Anthony Towns have actually played together in the same game. We'll see if they can end up doing something at the end of the season with newly first overall pick acquired Anthony Edwards, excuse me. We'll go on to the Clippers. Yeah, go ahead. What were you saying?
Spence, quite a few DNPs for DeAndre Jordan in a Nets uniform here in the last few weeks. What's going on here? He finally get a little action today, but DeAndre Jordan getting some DNPs. The Nets looking to go small ball. I mean, is this going to change come playoff time? This guy's healthy, been a healthy scratch.
Yeah, he's just old. He can't play that many minutes. And I think you'll see it very similar to the way JaVale McGee was treated last year, where he played significant minutes in the first round and then none in the second round and played again in the finals. So it will be completely matchup dependent. He clearly isn't terrible, but he can't play more than 15 minutes a game typically. Otherwise, he'll probably get injured. And that's kind of how they played him from now on. It's so funny. Every time you hear people talk about the Brooklyn Nets, his name is always mentioned, but people don't really realize he isn't getting that many minutes for the team, and that's it's for a reason. I'll quickly show the Utah Jazz highlight. Nothing too interesting between the Thunder and Utah Jazz, but a nice pass from Conley.
Conley right into Gobert. Gobert does a nice job sealing and then releasing and getting the dunk. Could have been an and one, actually.
So there we go. Rudy Gobert.
Lou Dort, 42 points for the Thunder tonight.
Yeah, one of their great young spots. I was actually going to put one of his shots in there. I didn't realize he had that many points. I'm actually a fan of the guy because he won me my ticket earlier. And I think last month he had a game winner. I don't remember who they were playing, but he's kind of my number one sleeper pick a lot of the times. But it's him and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and all their 28 picks. After that, there's not much to talk about for OKC Thunder. One more highlight for tonight, the Hawks. We all know how good they are offensively, but they've just come together on defense, and they're a completely different team now, making it all work. And this is a play. It's just a great example of everybody is locked in, and they want to win.
With the nice setup.
Well, Capella again gets another
Goodwin double. Read the pass perfectly. Intercepts, leaves it for Herter. Corner for Bogey. 3-ball on the way. Nothing but net. Beautiful steal by Goodwin. Started the play, and watch how it finishes.
Kevin Herter in particular,
Spence,
I think is just...
I was really hoping you could pull this crazy highlight from this game. At the end of the first half, a full court pass with 0.6 seconds left that Herter caught in stride and pretty much in the air, laid it in with 0.6 seconds. It was incredible. But continue your thought on Kevin Huerter.
Yeah, he's just when I did my draft analysis on him, I compared him to Klay Thompson. Never thought he was going to be as good as Klay Thompson, but he's the same archetype. Good defensively, a great three-point shooter, but then you see there, I mean, the passing ability is coming too. He's just one of their steals that they've gotten, and I'm a big fan of just so many things that they have going on. And they can play this well defensively. There's no reason why they can't be a real threat in the East, because I think a lot of the Brooklyn Nets guys are on one-year deals. They're also, crazy cases like most of them, and anything could blow up at any time. The Hawks are one of my favorite picks because I think they're like the third youngest team in the league.
Spence, from what you told me, it looks like you may cash another ticket. 3 minutes left in the fourth. The Suns up 101-83. Talk about your little run here, Spence.
Yeah, so if the Suns do cover the 3-point spread tonight, I have won 3 of my last 4 tickets. I thought about posting them on Twitter. I don't know if anyone's really interested in my picks or anything like that. But yeah, I just get it. It's very hard to judge the beginning of the season and right after the All-Star break. But when I'm in the chunk of it, when you're in like the day-to-day kind of grind, I pay attention to basketball every day. It's my favorite sport. And I get you check the injury reports, you kind of understand streaks. There's so much that goes into basketball, but once you engulf yourself in it, you listen to a lot of radio about it, you watch a lot of highlights, you kind of get a deep understanding of these teams. And sometimes I lose tickets, but you have to be willing to accept it. The way I bet the NBA is I assume everything will go exactly how I think it is. I don't say, oh, maybe they'll have this crazy upset tonight. Absolutely not. I do not stick with that. I bet as if every game in my mind, I'll play it out. That's how it's going to go. And that's how I win most of my tickets.
Well, Spence, let's briefly go over tomorrow's card since we're talking about betting. Some of the lines aren't up, but I'd like to go over some of the matchups with you and just a brief thought if you have one. Another early matchup, 1:30 Pacific tip-off in Minnesota. The Milwaukee Bucks travel to Minnesota to take on the T-Wolves. Not sure if Giannis will play, but Bucks Timberwolves expect this to be a big spread regardless of Giannis's availability.
Yeah, I'll take anything under 12. If it's over 12, I'm staying away. I'm not afraid of 10 to 12 point spreads. I think I mentioned this really early on in the season, but I think it's either home or away favorites who are favored by more than 10 are covering at a historic rate, and that's been true throughout the entire season. We're seeing blowouts constantly, and I wasn't bevy on it in the beginning of the season, but now it's easy picking much of the time. That's what creates these crazy lines like for the Utah Jazz and Thunder game, and that's when you can take that. If it's above 15, I almost always cover 2. So it's that sweet spot, that 10 to 12, or I should say like 9 to 11 is where I kind of like to go for it.
Spence, 4 p.m. Pacific tip in Charlotte. The Cavs travel to Charlotte to take on the Hornets. The Hornets will be on a back-to-back. That being said, I expect it to be a short home line. The number's not posted, but I would guess Hornets -3 here.
Yeah, I stay away from dumpster fire games, and this definitely qualifies as that for me. A fully healthy Hornets team, of course, but there are some games I just look at and you're like, I'm not interested because I have no idea. When 2 bad teams play each other, it's almost impossible to predict.
Spence, the Nets on a back-to-back, so we don't know what Kevin Durant's availability be. James Harden's been sitting out, so if that's the case, look for the Sixers to be a small favorite here at home. Nets travel to Philly to take on the Sixers. 4 p.m. ESPN game.
Yeah, these are the kinds of games that you want to follow Adrian Wojnarowski on Twitter and get alerts for him or any other injury updated one either, because a lot of the times my philosophy is there's one easy game that just sticks out to me. Like today, the Atlanta Hawks game stuck out to me, and I thought the line was too short because Kyle Lowry and Fred VanVleet weren't playing. So to me, I'm like, all right. And now it comes down to the second game. And a lot of the times where those come in is this person's not playing. William Hill does not update their app very fast, and they don't take games down either as soon as injuries are reported. Maybe it takes them some time after people start betting the other way. But if you can get in on that early line, so like if you, for example, for the Brooklyn game tomorrow, if you hear Kevin Durant's out and only Kyrie's playing, I mean, you're probably getting a short line. That's probably going to be an easy win for you. That's my philosophy.
Yeah, I would expect this line to probably be 4.5, 5 Sixers. We'll see what happens when it's posted. Raptors on a back-to-back. They lose to the Hawks, as you mentioned tonight, Spence. Tomorrow, they're at home in Tampa as they're playing their home games in Tampa, Florida this year. Spurs come to town to take on the Raptors. This, to me, looks like a dumpster fire game, Spence. Your thoughts?
I'm thinking about putting a little money on San Antonio. It all depends on the line. I won't take anything higher than 3. I think I may take that 3-point line. Spurs had a really bad stretch there, so I stayed away for quite some time. Had a nice win against the Mavericks. And, they're going to play well under Popovich, just kind of period. Kyle Lowry's out. Fred VanVleet looks like he's still going to be out. If that holds true, I'll be curious. I'm going to be looking at this game. It might be on my ticket.
Spence, Kawhi probably will play. Well, he may not play. He didn't sit out tonight. I think he's got a lingering injury. The Clippers travel to Detroit on a back-to-back to take on the Pistons. This number I expect to be right around 10 or less. I think they'll give the Pistons some credit. So they're going to be asking you to take the Clippers. Will the Pistons stay close in this one?
Yeah, I'm staying. If they have a fully healthy Clippers team, I'll take it. But if not, a lot of the times the Pistons are just ticket killers. So probably not one to bet for me.
The Magic travel to Chicago to take on the Bulls. This line is posted. Chicago, 9.5-point favorite. They started to play well with some of their guys. And this is Vujacic against his old team, Wendell Carter against his old team.
I guess, yeah. And Orlando's one of the worst shooting teams in the league. But have the Bulls really beaten anybody by more than 10 points in recent memory? After the Vucevic trade, they go on a 4-game losing streak, then a 3-game winning streak, and then they just lost to the Memphis Grizzlies. And I think they lost another game recently, too. I don't know why this line is so large. I don't know if I'm putting money on Orlando, but I'd be interested in it at least, maybe on a separate ticket.
Spence, Knicks at Pelicans. Pelicans line posted at 3.
Yeah, that is a close game. Those are kind of those in the margins. I'm actually thinking Pelicans here, but I shouldn't be because the Knicks are a very disciplined team. They play great defense. You know what? You probably have a strong opinion on this one. I don't. This is something that I'm going to be watching because I think this is a good matchup, but I don't want my money on it too. It's going to make me too nervous.
Well, Spence, my opinion would be watch the in game because the Knicks are a really good comeback team. They have come back from big deficits most of the season. I think if the Pelicans get out to a fast start, you can get some real value on the Knicks in game. So that would be my suggestion on this matchup.
Great. Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think a lot of people love in play. I actually never play in play. And I'll also tell you another secret about my betting. I never bet over unders. I think they are impossible to predict. In the beginning of the season, I do all this research. Oh, they're scoring a lot recently. This is a bad defensive team, and it just blows me out every time. I hate over-unders.
A few more matchups. We'll fly by these real quick. Pacers at Rockets. Indiana on a back-to-back. They're a road 5.5-point favorite. Spence, the Warriors travel to Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City on a back-to-back. The Warriors had a nice win as Curry went for 53 last night. Warriors looking to try to position themselves in one of these playoff seeded games. Spence, this one you'll like. ESPN, Mavericks, Grizzlies. This should be a good matchup. 6:30 p.m. Pacific tip. Looks like Dallas is a 1.5-point road favorite against Memphis.
I hate betting Memphis, but if I was trying to be objective about this, I think Dallas is going to blow out Memphis by like 10 points. So this seems like an easy line. I don't know why it's so close.
We'll get into this one. The Heat will be on a back-to-back. They'll travel to Denver. Denver now without Jamal Murray. They're going to be a 4-point favorite at home against Miami Heat.
Strange. I'm taking Miami. I think that's going to be one of the games on my ticket. They're going to have to. It's going to take a few games for them to figure out how to get past losing their second leading scorer, which we're going to talk about in just a second. But Miami for sure for me.
And then it'll finish off in Sacramento. The Wizards will be taking on the Kings. Spence, the other night, I think it was 3 nights ago, the Wizards had an incredible win against the Warriors. They were down 3. The Warriors had the game in hand with under 15 seconds left. The Wizards got another possession. Bradley Beal from the corner shot a 3, got fouled, hit the 3, and nailed the free throw to win by 1 against the Warriors. It was nuts.
Yeah, I actually really enjoy betting the Wizards. They're great in spots, and they've been having a much better second half of the season. They're a team to watch on a nightly basis if you get favorable lines.
Yeah, the Celtics trying to pull away here. It's the last game going here on the Tuesday night schedule. They're leading the Blazers 104-99 with about 5.5 left. The Blazers are the highest scoring first quarter team in the league. They haven't done much after that. They scored 38 tonight in the first, Spence. Then they scored 22 in the second, 27 in the third, and they've only got 12 through half the quarter here. They're going to need a big push at the end, and they're going to need a push for this game to go over as well. Spence, let's talk about the news, though, in Denver. Jamal Murray, torn ACL, out for the year. Huge blow for this Nuggets basketball team. Huge blow for the NBA as Jamal Murray has been great in the playoffs the past few years, having duels, with Donovan Mitchell and just being an absolute star come playoff time. We won't see him this time in the playoffs. Who's going to fill that role for the Nuggets as their point guard, scorer, distributor? It's just heartbreaking news. We know probably the best player on that team is Nikola Jokic. They've made a nice trade for Aaron Gordon. Michael Porter Jr. has established himself in the starting lineup as an offensive threat. What does this do to the Nuggets? I heard in some places the Nuggets championship odds in Vegas went from somewhere between 75 and 100 to 1. That's huge.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I just want to say how sad it is. And I'll even go back to like my days when Memphis was like going to the conference finals, when I loved them so much and I wanted them to do everything to get there. But I never, ever wanted them to get there because of an injury. It's just one of the worst feelings in the world, because no one wants an asterisk next to a win. And besides that, he's a young kid, and to see him go out, and plus probably means probably going to miss half of the season next year. We have to think ahead, not just in this year's playoffs. And he was having a career year, shooting 40% from the three-point line. There's nothing good about it. And you just hope that he can come back healthy. I mean, this just completely messes up their timeline. They make a big trade to get Aaron Gordon at the trade deadline. They get rid of their first-round pick, RJ Hampton. And it's just, I mean, Aaron Gordon is definitely not enough to take them. And you got the Clippers and the Lakers and the Suns and the Jazz. They're not going to get past them without Jamal Murray. That's the reality of the situation. So my Clippers ticket to make it to the finals is looking better now. I guess that's kind of one of the only bright spots here for that. But again, you hate to see these kinds of things, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's just one of the worst injuries in sports.
Spence, who's going to be able to fill this role for Denver? Who's going to be potential options to go to?
Nobody. If you want my real honest answer, it could have been Gary Harris, who 2 years ago was almost averaging 20 points per game, but he also got sent in that Aaron Gordon trade. And I still think it was objectively the right choice. You can't predict a torn ACL. They just don't have the guard rotation that they need. They're very much role players. It's not like if Mike Conley went down and Jordan Clarkson was, supposed to go up into the starting lineup. They don't have a guy like that, period. So it's going to be really, really rough for them. They're going to have to depend a lot more on everyone else to kind of use the scoring production. Talking about specifically the point guard position, it's a disaster.
That's Spencer the Wiz. Follow him on Twitter at Spencer the Wiz. And you can catch the Rest Stop every Tuesday and Thursday, 9 to 10 Pacific time. If you miss any of the show live, make sure you check out the YouTube channel. Search Brad the Believer, like, subscribe, all of that good stuff on there. And as well, if you miss any of the show, check out the audio podcast version of the show at any of the podcasting platforms. Landry Football Conference Call and the Rest Stop will be underneath there. Spence, let's keep it in the NBA. Mark Cuban came out and said today he's got some issues with the expanded playoff. He voted for it. Now he's saying it's an enormous mistake. What's Cuban talking about here, Spence? I mean, this is what every NBA or basketball fan wants to see. They want to see competitive basketball till the end, and then you have an opportunity for four teams to really play their asses off for two playoff spots. I mean, I think it's a great thing.
Yeah, it's only an enormous mistake because the Dallas Mavericks are the 7th seed in the West. That's why it's an enormous mistake. I'm going to pull up a quote now because you kind of alluded to it. This is what Mark Cuban had to say about it. The worst part of this approach is that it doubles the stress of the compressed schedule. Rather than playing for a playoff spot and being able to rest players as the standings become clearer, teams have to approach every game as a playoff game to either get into or stay in the top 6, since the consequences are enormous. So players are playing more games and more minutes in fewer days. That sounds great. I think that's what we've all wanted. There's so many old heads, like old classic NBA guys who hate resting, period. I don't really care about it that much, but obviously the way they, portray it, we all want that. No one wants to see like the last 2 weeks of basketball as a dumpster fire. Also, this tournament goes so deep. I guess I can pull up the standings now and kind of just explain how the end of this works. And that way you guys have a better understanding, of like what is going to be coming here. It's kind of this, I think it's the same as last year. I'm not sure, but in any case, okay. So if the playoffs were to start today, everyone's famous quote, right? No one really likes that, but here we go. So Dallas and Memphis will be playing a playoff game if the playoffs started. And the winner of those two is the 7th seed. So the first playoff game is to determine who the 7th seed will be. Let's assume the Dallas Mavericks win that game, which they most likely would. That means there's 8, 9, and 10 left. So the way the 8th seed is determined, 9 and 10 will also play a one-game playoff game, just like Memphis and Dallas did. And the winner of that game will have a chance to be the 8th seed now, and the loser of that one-game series will be out of the playoffs. So let's say in this case, the Golden State Warriors win. So now that leaves the Memphis Grizzlies and the Golden State Warriors. They play, it's not a best of 3, but they do play a 3-game series theoretically. All Memphis has to do is win one game. And in order for Golden State to take, that's how the playoff series works. And the reason I like this so much is not because 9 and 10 don't have a reason to give up. It's because 11 and 12 technically don't have a reason either. So less teams are tanking at the end of the season. The Pelicans are only one game out of the 10th seed, so they're only a game out of the play-in game. And right now they're only 2 games out of the 8th seed. So everyone's going to be trying as hard as they possibly can to get in there. And the Sacramento Kings, are floating around. They're 4 games back. They're terrible. But, again, the less teams that are given up at the end of the season, the better. And that's why I'm totally in favor of this little playoff thing we have going on here.
I completely agree. I think it makes it more competitive from top to bottom all the way to the end. And look, we've seen some crazy injuries this year, Spence. We just talked about one with Jamal Murray. If a team like the Pelicans or somebody gets hot, they're late, like the Phoenix Suns did last year, and they go against a team that's all of a sudden lost 1 or 2 key players. This is the NBA, and we could see anything. I know it's college basketball. We saw UCLA go from the play-in game to the Final Four, and we're a buzzer beater from half court away from being in the championship game. So, look, I think this is great. The sports needs to chime in and said he made a mistake by voting for it in the first place. That's fine. As basketball, that's fine, Cuban. But look, the bottom line is the fans think it's more entertaining. If you don't think it's more entertaining, I don't know what kind of freaking fan you are. I mean, it's just great to have competitive basketball till the end. And then the teams that don't want to be in clearly are tanking. You see that happening with teams like the Rockets, like the Thunder, even though the Thunder were pretty competitive tonight. So a team like the Golden State Warriors with Steph Curry, who went for 53 last night, if they can get a little bit healthy, even though James Wiseman has a meniscus injury, he'll probably miss some time. But Steph will win you by himself 1 or 2 games. It's going to be tough without Klay Thompson for them to win any series, but it'll be fun to watch. I certainly will be tuning in to watch Steph Curry cook it up come playoff time, Spence.
Yeah, and if you could tell me that there's a way for Steph Curry to be playing in the playoffs technically, I'm going to say yes, because I like to see him play basketball, and that would have never been possible before this season. I think that's the hook, line, and sinker. And now if I go down quickly to the Eastern Conference to see who would be playing there, the Chicago Bulls are in the 10th seed right now. The Raptors are 1 game behind. And hard to believe, the Washington Wizards are only 2 games behind the 10th seed. If I can see Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook playing the playoffs, I'm going to want to see that happen. And it just makes it more exciting because, first of all, the 7th and 8th seed almost never make it far into the playoffs. So if you can get us interested and you can get a little momentum for those lower seeds, I think it helps vie for maybe a bigger upset if those teams are fresh and excited going into it, rather than just barely sneaking into the playoffs and getting swept in the first round.
I would love to see the Wizards playing for a playoff spot. I think they're fun to watch. I think they've got potential. They started off the season dreadfully, and they started playing well a little bit after that. They certainly have cashed some money line dog tickets. They beat the Jazz here in the last few weeks. They can beat anybody on any given night. If Russell Westbrook can distribute the ball and limit his three-point shooting, they can score it well. They just got to play a little defense and contest some outside shots. Brad Beal, we know what he's capable of doing. So I think it'll be fun to watch. I think I love the idea. I don't know why Cuban's all up in arms. It's probably because his team is teetering around that 7th seed, and they're going to have to be playing with an opportunity to probably get knocked out of the playoffs. You wouldn't like to see that. We'd like to see Luka back in the playoffs with a healthy Kristaps Porzingis and see what damage Dallas could do, as they really played well against the Clippers last year before the Clippers beat them and moved on to lose to the Denver Nuggets. So this is going to be entertaining. It's going to, like you said, Spence, it's going to make games fun to watch all the way down to the end. And we're only about 14, 15 games left in the regular season. So, Spence, let's kick it over to the NFL. And, of course, we have the draft coming up in less than a month. The rumors are going rampant. It's 1 minute. It's definitely Mac Jones at 3. I've told you the whole time it's not. Now everybody else is jumping on the not bandwagon. So I don't know. All I'm saying is I haven't wavered in my philosophy that the 49ers are not going to take Mac Jones at number 3. I will stand by that until they actually do or do not take him. I think it would be a terrible decision, completely mismanaged by two very smart football guys, and I can't see that possibly happening to a guy in Mac Jones, who is a solid player, a national champion, but nobody, and I mean nobody, talked about Mac Jones going in the top 10 all the way from the beginning of the season up until about 3 weeks ago. So why all of a sudden would you trade 3 first-round picks to move up and take this guy number 3? It makes absolutely zero sense. What has happened, Spence, in the last 6 months that drastically would change your mind from what you already knew, a guy throwing to a Heisman winning wide receiver in a championship program in Alabama? He does not do anything overwhelmingly better than the people you already have in that quarterback room.
I've done my scouting analysis on him, and he's a great pocket passer, but there's a few issues that he runs into, and they're really bad. So he always kind of got stuck on his first option. We all know he's an accurate passer. I mean, he understood the playbook for Alabama very well, too. He threw 77%. But when things didn't go right for him, when in his mind, because he thought everything was going to go right, that's kind of the way that he played football, he had some horrible, horrible throws. He kind of throws his mechanics out the window. He also is not very mobile. I think you and I both know that. He's a little more athletic, I think, than people give him credit for. But
I agree.
He's not going to get you yards on his feet like you want him to, or at least a prototypical running back would. And outside of that, he just kind of misses the dink and dunk, which is so important in the NFL. Everybody is so enamored with the 50-yard pass that Patrick Mahomes can do, but nobody wants to care about the Alex Smiths and stuff like that. And I think that's just Patrick Mahomes may have affected quarterbacks for years and years to come now. We're seeing less and less of those kind of QBs who are looking to kind of just move the ball. Zach Wilson, too, I think, also has a huge problem where he always just wants it to be 40 yards down the field. Mac Jones is not the 3rd overall pick in this draft. If they do, I mean, they've ruined themselves. He's not even worth 1 first-round pick to trade up, let alone 3. Maybe 1, I guess, if you could argue that, because he is so smart. He is such a film junkie and dedicated to the game, but he doesn't have the actual skill set yet to be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. There's no way.
Spence, we saw one of the football team dynasties kind of subside last year. One of the people that led that dynasty, Tom Brady, continued his greatness, winning a Super Bowl in his first season with Tampa Bay. But a guy synonymous with the Patriots, with Tom Brady, a Super Bowl champion, Super Bowl MVP, Julian Edelman, seems to not have been recovering well from a knee injury, and it looked like he's going to call it a career in the NFL. And Spence, I want to get to a clip here of Julian Edelman talking about it may be time to hang it up.
Oh, okay. Hold on. Okay. Well, I think
I got it here.
Okay.
I'll be making my official announcement of my retirement from football. It was a hard decision, but the right decision for me and my family. And I'm honored and so proud to be retiring a Patriot. There are a million people I have to thank. Mr. Kraft, the Kraft family, learned so much from you guys on and off the field. Coach Belichick, giving me an opportunity. I always love you for that. My teammates, gone to war. We've lost some, we've won some. You guys will always be my brothers. To all my coaches that I played under, I appreciate all your insight, all your hard work, all your knowledge. To the entire Patriots organization, from the meal ladies, to the people that clean up after us, to people in the hallways, the training staff, the strength staff. We share so many awesome memories that I'll never forget. And of course, my family. You guys have always had my back. It's been the best 12 years of my life. It's a hell of a run. And I can't forget you, Patriot Nation. You guys have welcomed me and my family to a region we do not know. We didn't know. But now, I'm one of you. I'm going to leave you guys with 2 words. Foxborough, forever.
Spencer the Wiz, Julian Edelman, 12-year career in the NFL. Looks like he's going to call it a day. Before we get to one of his former teammates, look, a lot of people debating whether Julian Edelman's a Hall of Famer. Look, for me, you win 3 titles, a Super Bowl MVP, you lead. I believe he leads the Patriots. He may lead the entire league in playoff receiving yards. I mean, we'd have to double check that, but I know he's very high up there in playoff statistics. Regular season statistics don't jump out to you, but they're very comparable to Hall of Famer Lynn Swann. This guy's body of work, Spence, in the playoffs does it for me. I'm sorry. I don't know how you argue that. The guy's been a playoff monster. He's been instrumental in the Patriots' Super Bowl victories when he's a part of that team. And he's been clutch. He's been absolutely clutch in the playoffs. The guy is worthy of a Hall of Fame career. Is it first ballot? I doubt that. But 12-year career in the NFL, 3 Super Bowl titles, Super Bowl MVP, and just monstrous playoff statistics. Spence, why are people fighting so hard to tell me this guy's not a Hall of Famer?
Well, he's going to have an uphill battle, and I'll tell you why. There's 3 players in my mind that he's the most comparable to in terms of just stats that jump off the page from a statistical standpoint. Lenny Moore, Dante Lavelli, and Kellen Winslow. They all have right around that 6,000-yard kind of regular season stats, and they're all in the Hall of Fame, all 3 of those guys. There's only one issue here. Well, Lenny Moore was drafted in 1960. 1960. Dante Lavelli was drafted in 1947, and Kellen Winslow was drafted in 1979. So the most recent player that you can say played in the 80s who had a similar statistical career and also made the Hall of Fame. We're talking like 30 years, I guess, maybe, or I guess 40 years since a player of his caliber has made the Hall of Fame. Now, he does have the playoffs, but it's tough. I mean, people haven't done it in a very long time with careers similar to his. That's kind of where I'll put it there.
Spence, have you looked at the Lynn Swann stats? This guy also a multiple playoff success, Super Bowl champion. I mean, very, very comparable stats here with Edelman and Lynn Swann as well.
I mean, he's only had 2 1,000-yard receiving seasons. That's really tough to convince somebody in the modern age that that's a Hall of Fame career. That's how I see it.
All right, Spence, here you go. Most playoff receptions of all time. Number 1, Jerry Rice, 151. Number 2, Julian Edelman, 118. Most playoff receiving yards of all time. Jerry Rice, number 1, 2,245. Number 2, Julian Edelman, 1,442. Right next to the greatest receiver in history.
Yeah, he'll be argued into it. He's not a first ballot Hall of Famer, obviously. I mean, he can't stack up against the all-time greats, but he'll kind of have his last chance. I think, what do you get, 3 chances? Is that what it is to get voted in? And then after that, you don't have a chance anymore?
No, that's not true. I don't. I don't know. I don't think that there's a cap of 3. I think after 10 years or something, you go into a different list. Besides, on the actual ballot, but I definitely don't think it's 3.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So but I think there is a cap for it. I think eventually that you don't make it if you don't get voted in at some point after being on the list so many times.
Well, it's going to be an interesting conversation. And let's check out I got the regular season stats here. Lynn Swann, 336 receptions, 5,462 yards, 51 touchdowns in the regular season. Julian Edelman, 620 receptions, 6,822 yards, and 36 touchdowns. When
did he play? What year was he drafted? Do you know?
Lynn Swann was somewhere in the 70s, Super Bowl champion with the Steelers.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, those kinds of stats were really big deals back in the day, those 6,000-yard careers, but guys are having regular 1,000-yard careers. So you're basically saying that, again, I understand the playoff implications, and I can't argue that. Nobody can. I'm talking about he's not a Hall of Famer according to his regular season stats, period. I mean, they're not good enough to make the Hall of Fame.
Right. I agree with that in the regular season, but that's clearly not where the argument lies. The argument lies this guy's number 2 in 2 huge categories in receiving and playoff history. He's a Super Bowl MVP and a multiple-time Super Bowl champion. Terrell Davis had 1 or 2 good years in the regular season, but he's a Super Bowl champion. He's in the Hall of Fame. Kurt Warner, same thing. 1 or 2 good regular seasons, Hall of Famer. one Super Bowl victory. We'll see. Look, it's a good argument. It's a good discussion for the people that think that he's got no shot. I think they're ridiculous. Yes, regular season, are his stats mind-blowing? No, they're not. But the guy is a playoff legend, and that's the most important thing, is he's a champion, and he spent his entire career with the Patriots. Spence, if we can, let's get to a former teammate of Julian Edelman and see what he has to say.
Yep, on TMZ.
Rob, how you doing, man? Welcome to LA. Look, I gotta ask, Julian Edelman retiring. Can I get a?
Yeah, he's a beast.
He is a beast.
Yeah.
A lot of people caught off guard. I was shocked, actually.
Julian's ultimate competitor, man. Nothing but huge proud for Julian, man. He was a great teammate. Three-time Super Bowl champ, MVP of the Super Bowl.
Of course.
You gotta give it to Jules, man. He gave it his all. His whole career, and he was a wonderful teammate. Had a lot of good times with him,
and fun to watch.
He's gonna keep on thriving.
So let me ask you this though. There's a lot of people are asking now that he's done. Is he a Hall of Famer?
Jules? Yeah, he's a Patriot Hall of Famer for sure.
A Patriot Hall of Famer.
100%.
NFL Hall of Famer.
I definitely think he has a great possibility of being a Hall of Famer.
You know, the regular season numbers maybe fall a tad short. His postseason numbers are incredible, right?
Yeah, he's a beast. And I mean, the numbers just don't show everything that he brings to the table. You know, just the attitude and competitiveness that he has.
So it's more than just the numbers, obviously?
Yeah, it's more than the numbers that makes Julian Edelman.
Is there any chance that he ends up in Tampa Bay with you guys next year? Has there
69% chance? Yeah.
A 69% chance?
Yes.
Where are you getting that number from, can I ask?
That's just, you asked if there's a chance, I give you a number.
All right, look, do you think he has another year in him?
Yeah.
You do?
He'll be back.
He'll be back?
He'll be back.
You think? All right.
Yeah.
Camille, you gonna put a ring on it? You've been together 6 years.
Wonderful.
You gonna put a ring on it?
I love Camille.
You gonna put a ring on it?
Maybe one day.
All right, brother. Good luck. Thank you.
How about that, Spencer the Wiz? The Gronk going through the airport, mask on, 69%, answering all the questions. What were your thoughts on that clip there, Spencer?
First thing I want to say is these reporters are the scum of the earth, in my opinion. Come on, you just get out into LA and this guy's harassing you and walking with you to your car. He was actually very nice. Like, Gronk was very nice about it. If I was him, I'd slap the phone out of his hand and be like, dude, I just got off a plane. Like, don't talk to me. There's probably going to be press releases and stuff about this. Why are you, like, waiting for my plane to land? That's very strange. And he's also just a dork bag. I mean, just like, what do you think about this? I know it's nothing to do with the conversation, but good Lord, dude. Like, those people have no lives, like, at all. They're just clout chasers, and that's all that matters to them. It's a kind of a sad existence, in my opinion.
So, Spence, if you were a super famous celebrity, you wouldn't be too kind to the paparazzi following you off your airplane.
I'd be nice to them, but I'm like, at least I would be like, make some sort of like availability or some sort of schedule. And if someone harasses me like that, I'll call the police. I mean, that's insane. Could you imagine somebody trying to do that to you while you're doing day-to-day things? And I know that happens quite a bit, but these guys are football players. I mean, they're not, it's kind of weird, right? Like when you're a songwriter, you're kind of like talking about your feelings. You're putting yourself very much out there. But at the end of the day, these guys are just guys who make money playing football. They're not true celebrities. Let this guy live his life and have those answers questioned when it's kind of appropriate when they're at practice. I don't know. I don't know if you feel the same way about it, but that guy in particular, I just felt like was such a dork.
Spence, before we move on from the NFL, you had one more topic you wanted to get to a little bit with some NFL discussion.
Yeah, it's not a huge discussion. It's kind of just something that I guess all Americans are talking about in general. So the NFL came out and said that, personnel and staff who refuse the vaccine will not be allowed to interact with players. Like, there won't be tier 1 or tier 2 staff. I don't know what that means specifically, but obviously that means that they're not going to be talking and interacting with the players. And that kind of gets into the more overall discussion of, should you force somebody to get the vaccine? And is it the same thing as forcing someone to get the vaccine by restricting them so much that they can't really do their jobs? Where do you land anywhere on this argument? And I don't know, do you feel a certain way about it, I guess?
Honestly, I'm not a big fan of forcing people and telling them what they need to do in order to do their job. Since when did we live in a country that does that? I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, it's fascinating, right? Because technically everybody should get the vaccine. It's just good for everybody. It's good for elderly people, people at risk. But on the other side of it, we've never really been forced to do anything. I mean, but there's also dangers to that, because that means that we've allowed anti-vaxxers to kind of rise up, and those kids are getting abused by not having the most basic vaccines put in their body, like chickenpox. So I guess it kind of comes down. It's so weird how politicized this thing has become. Like, it's people are saying, like, what are you putting in your body? Basically just saying that, F the world scientists. The way I look at it is this, though. If you want to get down to the most basic root of the vaccine, A, the vaccine works and everybody becomes immune, or B, it doesn't work and it's a disaster and people die or whatever. I mean, that would cause the end of world governments. If half of the population on the planet took this vaccine and it has some sort of horrible effect, that's going to cause nuclear war and we'll all be dead anyways. So that's like my basic stance on the vaccine. I'm very much like an originist, meaning like I love the Constitution of the United States. I think it's like the greatest document ever made. And, basically that says that you can't force somebody to do something. I just think whether what side of this you like stand on, we are going to be forced to get the vaccine one way or another, either to travel through planes to, I doubt it'll get to the level of working, but I think corporations will eventually like not hire new staff unless they are vaccinated, like that kind of thing. It's kind of scary because what can happen in the future, but come on. I mean, you have to kind of cross that bridge when you get there. You can't just start having panicking people and saying like the next thing like you'll have no rights at all. I think that's too much of a far leap. But clearly, I mean, we're getting closer and closer to those steps where corporations and your jobs, the way you make money, are going to say you have to get the vaccine.
You are right about that, Spence. And I'm not anti-vax, Spence. I just don't like that it's too soon to have enough information about the long term right now. Now, you've told me you've gotten your vaccination already and you haven't had any effects, which is great. I've listened to some stuff on the radio from firsthand experience from doctors where there's been questions about the delivery of the vaccine. If the person injecting the vaccine is not doing it correctly, if they do it wrong, it can lead to some of that pain in the arm or injury, that there's a certain way to do it with the muscle. So that information doesn't necessarily worry me. I would just hope that I have somebody or ask the questions necessary to make sure that the person delivering my vaccine knew what they were doing. I just wish we knew more information about, because you're the second person today, Spence, I heard about some of this blood clotting issue with the vaccines. I mean, what is this about? I mean, I would like more information. It's not something that should be dismissed.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's weird to blindly accept something. It's actually, I think, only for the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which is the one that I got, but it appears to only be for women from a certain age, like 21 to something like 30 something. So I'm not a woman, obviously, but you got to just try to pay attention to the signs. And I guess the scariest part about it, just in general, is the way that pharmaceutical companies are ran. They make a drug, and it doesn't have to be the vaccine, just any drug, and they make $5 billion off of it. And because it's rush or production, and just because of medicine in general, you're never going to have a perfect medication. There's going to be a lawsuit. I'm sure there'll be a lawsuit over the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. But the thing is, when you make $5 billion and your lawsuit settles for $1 billion, let's even make it to the extreme. They have to give up $1 billion. Well, they've just net profited $4 billion or such. Or the cost of the vaccine, let's say, is even more than that. Even if they profit $2 billion, everything else, falls by the wayside. That's such a big profit margin line. And I think that's the main issue with pharmaceutical companies, not necessarily every case by case, but those small cases that they either cover up or they don't care about or they don't do enough due diligence on.
Spence, we're going to wrap up the show with a little take on the Masters weekend. But before we do that, Spence, I've got to tell you a quick story here. So a buddy of mine who I haven't seen in 20 years, his name's Julius Lee. I played football with him in high school. As you've seen, I've reconnected with some old buddies here in the last couple months. But Spence, listen to this story here. So Julius was staying at the Circus, and I picked him up from the airport, and we were at the Venetian. He walked from the Venetian to Caesar's Palace, Caesar's Palace to MGM. This is walking. MGM back to Circus. Circus took a nap for an hour, got up, managed to walk to the Stratosphere, and then the Stratosphere to Dre's nightclub back to Circus. Got to his room around 5 a.m. and was up for approximately somewhere around 23 hours. Spence, this is some insane walking by my man Julius. Spence, you're mute there.
Oh, geez. Rookie mistake by me. I was drinking water. But when I was in the military, I used to actually run the strip from UNLV, and we'd run all the way down to, I think, the New York and back or something like that. So I've transversed the land a little bit. But I guess the hard part is if you're not a local, then you don't really understand like the whole trolley system. It's like really good. You can hit a lot of the casinos without having to walk too much. And I think as time goes on, that'll only get better. I guess if you really just want to discover every part of the land, you're probably talking about like 5 miles probably, which is a lot, but it's not impossible. It's like a 5K's worth or something, somewhere around that.
Yeah, with all the back and forth, he quite put it in. I asked him if his shoes kind of, fell off and broke down on him. He said he had some fine Italian leather pieces in there and they held up nice. So I told him he was a cyborg for making that walk back and forth all the way around. With the drink in one hand and smoke in the other. I mean,
wow.
He was not taking Uber. He wasn't taking a cab. He just decided to walk it. So it was good to see him. So if he checks this out, talked about his little story about walking up and down the strip. Man, to me, I would have been like, what the hell's going on? 5 a.m. And he was up 5 a.m., 4 a.m. his time flying out. And then 5 a.m. Vegas time, which is 8 o'clock East time. That's a hell of a lot of walking. Spence, the Masters weekend. A lot of people said it wasn't so eventful. I completely disagree. Hideki Matsuyama wins, first Japanese player to win a major championship, or at least at the Masters. And I thought it was exciting. I don't know what people are talking about. I don't know if they turned off their television or what. But look, Matsuyama and Xander Schauffele were two in the final pairing. And Matsuyama, after the first hole, his lead of 4 went to 2. After one hole, Spence. He bogeyed. Another guy got within 2. And it was within 2 or 3 most of the back half. Now, Schauffele shot himself almost out of it on the front 9. At one point, he was down to 4 under, made a roaring comeback. At one point, 4 straight birdies for Schauffele. He was within 2 strokes of Matsuyama. So what are these people talking about that Matsuyama had it in hand the whole way? Did he lead wire to wire in the final round? Yes, but he did not have it locked up by any means. Schauffele was right there, and then on 16, that triple bogey, I believe that he had, or double bogey, completely took him out of it. If it weren't for that shot on 16, Schauffele's right there till the end. Now, Will Zalatoris, first-timer, USA, American at a major, finished with 9 under. It ended up being 1 shot behind Matsuyama, who finished at 10 under. But Matsuyama bogeyed the final hole. I don't know what people are talking about, Spence. I watched most of this final round wire to wire, and I thought it was exciting. Even though Matsuyama didn't give up the lead, he by no means ran away with it.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was a very good Masters, and it's cool to see someone new win it always. It's kind of the best part of the Masters, unless their name is Tiger Woods, then there's nothing more exciting than that. But the real interesting, or I say the most interesting storyline of the Masters for me was Schauffele. And you're talking about number 16. The only reason he triple bogeyed it is because he was trying to go for the hole that much. Like he was taking a massive risk. It cost him $625,000. So I guess I'm curious to get your opinion on this. If you were in his spot and it's a long shot for you to win the Masters, but it's technically in reach, would you go for it knowing you could triple bogey the hole, or do you play it safe and you secure as much money as possible for the majors because it's a huge payday?
Well, Spence, the way Schauffele was playing, I don't think he needed to go for broke there. He was playing great golf on the back 9. Like I said, 4 straight birdies, and Matsuyama was not doing anything to separate himself. So that being said, and Schauffele's been right there in the top 5 of some of these big tournaments. I didn't think he had to put himself at that much of a risk. I didn't realize that shot was going to be at risk of going into the water and costing him that penalty. If he could have done it over and he could have played himself conservatively on 16, he still got 17, 18 to maybe catch up 2 strokes. I don't think that that's out of reach. I mean, I didn't think Matsuyama did enough to separate himself. Of course, hindsight's 20/20, Spence. It's easy for me to say that now. At the time, you're at a limited time frame to make that decision. He made the decision. It didn't work out for him. I thought he played a great round and it just didn't work out for him. But Schauffele will be right there at the Masters in the future. He's been right there at a lot of these majors in the top 10. But Matsuyama deserves tons of credit, Spence. He did what he had to do to hang on and to be the first Japanese golfer ever to win the Masters. Spence, by chance, did you catch the tweet I sent you in the direct message of the Japanese sound of Matsuyama winning the tournament, or are we not able to pull that?
I could pull it. Just give me 1 second. I'll pull it up in just a moment.
Okay, but
yeah, I just want to say about him is it wasn't a perfect round, but I mean, being the leader going into the last day of a tournament is, especially the Masters, it's got to be one of the worst feelings in the world. I would not want to be, because everybody's looking at you. Everyone's waiting for you to slip up. And he even did in the front 9. We were just talking about that. But to have the guts to someone who's never won the Masters to be able to do that, who's never won a major championship period, it's great. I mean, it's why we love golf. It's what makes it so special to me. And I'm pulling up the clip here, and let's take a look.
Matsuyama Hideki マスターズを勝ちました。ついに日本人がグリーンジャケットに袖を通します。日本人が招待を受けた85年、ついに世界の頂点に松山は立ってくれました。
Spence, very emotional. Look, the commentators said most of the day, this guy carrying the torch for an entire nation. The country of Japan is very big in golf. They take it very passionately. They're trying to make their way into becoming a dominant force in the golf game. And this is enormous for the country of Japan. They are super excited to have Hideki Matsuyama carry that torch and the flag bearer, the first Japanese player ever to win the Masters. And congratulations to him. And I thought it was a great tournament, a great final round. What all these other jabronis are talking about, I really don't know, because Matsuyama never pulled away. He won by 1 stroke. 2 strokes is nothing. You saw that on 16 with Schauffele triple bogeying. It was never completely pulled away that Matsuyama won the tournament. And even though he had the gimme to go up 1, we've seen people miss those putts, Spence, under that pressure. He could have easily missed that putt, and we're talking about a playoff between Zalatoris and Matsuyama. So forget all that nonsense. A great final round. Of course, no Tiger Woods, but congratulations to Matsuyama and carrying the torch for the country of Japan. First ever male Masters winner from Japan. So that's fantastic. Well, another one in the books, Spencer the Wiz. Follow him on Twitter at Spencer the Wiz. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Brad the Believer. We'll be back with you on Thursday, 9 o'clock Pacific time. Have a great night.